senseless wars, dying of poverty.
Flick to link, link to flick.
Today I want to talk about the meaning of words, how we define them and how they, almost as revenge, define us. The English language is a magnificent sponge. I love the English language. I'm glad that I speak it. But for all that, it has a lot of holes. In Greek, there's a word, locucism, which is the hunger for disaster. You know, when you see a thunderstorm on the horizon and you just find yourself rooting for the storm. In Mandarin, they have a word yu yi, I'm not pronouncing it correctly, which means the longing to feel intensely again, the way you did when you were a kid. In Polish, they have a word juska, which is the kind of hypothetical conversation that you compulsively play out in your head. And finally, in German, of course in German, they have a word called Zielschmerz, which is the dread of getting what you want. Finally fulfilling a lifelong dream. I'm German myself, so I know exactly what that feels like. Now, I'm not sure if I would use any of these words as I go about my day, but I'm really glad they exist. But the only reason they exist is because I made them up. I am the author of The Dictionary of Obscure Sorrows, which I've been writing for the last 7 years. And the whole mission of the project is to sort of find holes in the language of emotion and try to fill them so that we have a way of talking about all those human peccadillos and quirks of the human condition that we all feel but may not think to talk about because we don't have the words to do it. And about halfway through this project, I defined Sonder, the idea that we all think of ourselves as the main character and everyone else is just extras. But in reality, we're all the main character. And you yourself are an extra in someone else's story. And so as soon as I published that, I got a lot of response from people saying, thank you for giving voice to something that I'd felt all my life, but there was no word for that. So it made them feel less alone. I think that's the power of words, to make us feel less alone. And it was not long after that I started to notice Sonder being used earnestly in conversations online. And not long after that I actually noticed it, I caught it next to me in an actual conversation in person. There is no stranger feeling than making up a word and then seeing it take on a mind of its own. I don't have a word for that yet, but I will. I'm working on it. I started to think about what makes words real. Because a lot of people ask me, the most common thing I got from people is, well, are these words made up? I don't really understand. And I didn't really know what to tell them, because once Sonder started to take off, who am I to say what words are real and what aren't? And so I sort of felt like Steve Jobs, who described his epiphany as when he realized that most of us, as we go through the day, we just try to avoid bouncing against the walls too much and just sort of get on with things. But once you realize that people, that this world was built by people no smarter than you, then you can reach out and touch those walls and even put your hand through them and realize that you have the power to change it. And when people ask me, are these words real? I had a variety of answers that I tried out. Some of them made sense, some of them didn't. But one of them I tried out was, well, a word is real if you want it to be real. You know, the way that this path is real because people wanted it to be there. That happens on college campuses all the time. It's called a desire path. But then I decided what people are really asking when they're asking if a word is real, they're really asking, well, how many brains will this give me access to? Because I think that's a lot of how we look at language. A word is essentially a key that gets us into certain people's heads. And if it gets us into one brain, that's not really worth it. Not really worth knowing. 2 brains, it depends on who it is. 1 million brains, okay, now we're talking. And so A real word is one that gets you access to as many brains as you can. That's what makes it worth knowing. Incidentally, the realest word of all by this measure is this. That's it. The realest word we have, that is the closest thing we have to a master key. That's the most commonly understood word in the world, no matter where you are in the world. The problem with that is no one seems to know what those two letters stand for. Which is kind of weird, right? I mean, it could be a misspelling of all correct, I guess, or old Kinderhook. No one really seems to know. But the fact that it doesn't matter says something about how we add meaning to words. The meaning is not in the words themselves. We're the ones that pour ourselves into it. And I think when we're all searching for meaning in our lives and searching for the meaning of life, and I think words have something to do with that. And I think if you're looking for the meaning of something, the dictionary is a decent place to start. It brings a sense of order to a very chaotic universe. Our view of things is so limited that we have to come up with patterns and shorthands and try to figure out a way to interpret it and be able to get on with our day. We need words to contain us, to define ourselves. I think a lot of us feel boxed in by how we use these words. We forget that words are made up. It's not just my words. All words are made up. But not all of them mean something. We're all just sort of trapped in our own lexicons that don't necessarily correlate with people who aren't already...
Flick to flick. My photo taste is the Pinterest because they are the best.
Welcome to Spotlight. I'm Ryan Gertzma.
And I'm Robin Basselin. Spotlight uses a special English method of broadcasting. It is easier for people to understand no matter where in the world they live.
"33 men lived through a terrible crisis. These men were miners at the San Jose mine near Copiapó, Chile. Together, these men worked deep under the ground. Every day, they dug valuable copper and gold out of the ground. But on August 5th, 2010, the ground above these miners collapsed. Large rocks fell and filled the paths back to the surface. These 33 miners were trapped, and they remained trapped under the ground for 69 days.
You may have heard another Spotlight program about the San Jose mine crisis. This program described how the men lived under the ground, and it told the story of their amazing rescue. However, the miners' story did not end with their rescue. For all of them, life continues after the crisis. And for many, life after the crisis is very different than before. Today, many of them travel and tell the world about their experience. They also use their experience to inform the world about issues that are important to them. Today's Spotlight is on life after the San Jose mine crisis.
Since the mining accident, organizations all over the world have invited many of the miners to visit and speak at events. In February 2011, 13 of the miners went to an event in the state of Florida in the United States. The event raised money for the United Mine Workers of America Miners Aid Fund. At the event, the miners talked about what they hoped to do in the future. Some planned to go back to mining, and one man talked about becoming an ambassador for mine safety. Many of the miners have spoken at these kinds of events.
But two miners in particular are using their frightening experience to do good. Because of the crisis, Jose Enriquez and Mario Sepulveda are traveling the world. And they are telling people about what is most important to them.
Jose Enriquez is a Christian. While trapped in the mine, he talked about his faith with the other miners. As a result, Enriquez became known as the pastor or religious leader of the group. He led the men in prayer and told them about God. Many of the miners say his faith helped them think positively while they waited to be rescued. Enriquez told the news website This is Gloucestershire.
Our experience shows that no matter how bad things seem, there is always hope. We never lost faith during the days we were trapped. It was a terrible situation to be in. We were frightened. But even with everything that happened, we put our trust in God. We knew He had the power to save us.
Enriquez continues to tell people about God. He always tells about how he believes in a God who answers prayer. He talks about the 22 miners that decided to follow Jesus as their Lord while they were in the mine. He believes this story of crisis is a message of hope. He told This is Gloucestershire,
Since we were rescued, it has been my purpose in life to tell people my story. I believe God had a design for our accident to help spread a message of hope. Our experience shows that there is always hope, no matter how bad things seem.
Another way Enriquez tells his story is by going on speaking tours. He travels to one area of the world and speaks at many places in a short period of time. In January and February 2011, Enriquez traveled around the United Kingdom. He visited more than 14 places in England and Ireland. He called this tour the 34th Man Tour. Mike Judge works for the Christian Institute in the United Kingdom. In a short film, he asked Enriquez about the name of the tour. There were only 33 men trapped in the mine. So Judge asked Enriquez, "Who is the 34th man?" Enriquez answered,
He is the one we are talking about. He is the friend who is always near us. You cannot see him, but you can feel he is present in your heart. We believe in a power that is not seen. It cannot be touched, but it can be felt in the heart. That is our God, the Lord Jesus Christ. He has given us the gift of the Holy Spirit. And he has given us the sure faith that he is real, that he is a true God, and that he does answer prayer.
Mario Sepulveda is another rescued miner using the crisis for good. Like Enriquez, he travels on speaking tours. But he speaks about the importance of working together to help people recover from crisis. Sepulveda saw how people from around the world came together to save the trapped miners. He believes this unity, or oneness, was important to the recovery. So he started a not-for-profit organization called Miners Miracle. He hopes that Miners Miracle will help him spread a message of international unity.
On February 27, 2010, about 5 months before the mine accident, an earthquake destroyed many areas of Chile. The government worked hard to assist the families who no longer had homes. But Sepulveda says that even with this help, many earthquake victims still do not have basic shelter. Through Miners Miracle, Sepulveda is raising money to build new homes for the earthquake victims in Chile. He hopes to build 200 houses by June 2011.
Sepulveda's goal grew even bigger in March of 2011. This is when a major earthquake and tsunami destroyed many areas of Japan. He believes international unity helps countries recover from crisis. So he decided Miners Miracle would also help raise money for Japan. On the Miners Miracle website, he stated,
I am strongly affected by the suffering and damage caused by the earthquake and tsunami. I feel sympathy for the victims of this terrible crisis and to Japan. I understand what they must be going through, and my heart is sad for them. I feel as if I am still trapped in that mine. I feel that I must make efforts to help Japan in this struggle. I not only wish to build homes in Chile, but I also wish to bring aid to Japan in the spirit of international unity.
The mine collapse in San Jose was a terrible crisis. It changed the lives of 33 men forever. Each of them was given a second chance. And many of the miners, like Jose Enriquez and Mario Sepulveda, are using that second chance to bring hope out of crisis.
writer of this program was Courtney Scott. The producer was Ryan Gertzma.
in senseless wars, dying of poverty.
Flick to link, link to flick.